I always talk about leaning into and showing up anyway, but I also want to be real and say, look, that is something I could not fully lean into. I didn't have to, luckily, because of nature, but sometimes being courageous and having courage is saying no in a moment that you don't know if you can make it through.
The gold is often buried where you least want to look. I say this quote all the time. I will continue to say it. I said this: if what you wanted and what you needed were the same thing, you'd already have it. If what you wanted and what you needed were the same thing, you would already have it.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 1065, last week's live podcast, Why Many Relationships Fail. Today, for episode number 1066, Courage Isn't Always What You Think. Look at my shirt, Alan. Hold on. Let me stand up. Tell you.
Wait. Elevation.
Yep.
Telluride.
Telluride.
Yep. 13,000.
Yep.
320. Colorado.
Yeah. So that's where we went. We went to Telluride, which is 13,320 feet above sea level.
Cool.
Which made it very hard to breathe. So,
really?
Happy Wednesday, happy hump day if you are listening. As you know, last week I got back from Colorado. So Tarryn and I went to Colorado. We eloped. We are now married. We got amazing pictures and videos taken, and it was honestly the best trip I've ever been on. Colorado is beautiful. We enjoyed it so very much. Before we went out to Colorado, we created a list of things that we were going to do. And one of those things was we were going to, and I mentioned this before we left, we were going to go hot air ballooning, much to my demise and dismay. And
Demise.
I thought it was going to be to my demise. So the night before, so we drove from Telluride, Colorado, which is quite literally in the middle of nowhere, mountains. It's like 45 minutes on one street to get there. There's one road in and one road out. I think we drove 5 hours or 6 hours from there to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we had this really cool Airbnb. It looked like a shed from the outside, but it was really cool on the inside. And it had like a loft bed, and it was really good. But we were only there for one night, and the next morning we were supposed to get up at 5 or 4:30 a.m. and go check in for our hot air balloon flight, because it has to be early in the morning, because that's before the weather usually happens and the wind usually picks up. And Taryn and I were getting ready for bed, and I was like, babe, I don't know if I can do this tomorrow. And she's like, no, you're going to be fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's safe. And I said, no, I understand, but like, I don't know if I can physically do it. Like, I don't know if you understand how terrified I am of this. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, I've been thinking about this the entire trip, and I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I want to do it. And then we had a real talk, and she was like, well, if you don't want to do it, it's okay. You don't have to do it. I don't want you to do something that you're going to like lose your mind over the entire time. And I said, I'm like so ashamed that I don't have the bravery to do this. And I'm always talking about face your fears and fear chasing and get outside of your comfort zone. And I just said, I just think this is like a hard no for me right now. I don't know that there's a human strong enough to get me into this basket. I feel like I will just grab onto something and it'll be like, good luck. Like, you're not getting me in this thing. So we had a real conversation about that, but I felt a ton of shame about letting her down. I felt a ton of shame about not being able to face that fear. And I think the next day I actually saw a post, and the post was something along the lines of, a man was talking to his son, and he said, son, sometimes saying yes to something that scares you is super courageous. He said, but also on the other end, sometimes saying no to something that scares you beyond your belief is also something that's very courageous. And I enjoyed that very much because it made me feel good about myself. So we go to bed that night. I did not sleep a wink. I was losing my mind. I told Alan at one point I was literally crying because I was so afraid. And I was like, I really hope this gets canceled. I really hope this hot air balloon thing gets canceled, because they're always checking on the weather. And if there is too much wind or if it's going to rain, they cancel it immediately. Safety is the utmost priority, which I appreciate. But the night before there were storms and there was like flash floods in the area. And I was like, okay, this is going to be okay. And we go to bed. Again, I barely slept. I slept like garbage because I was so nervous. I was so anxious. And I woke up at 4 to go to the bathroom. And I had a text message from a number I didn't recognize. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Oh my goodness, I manifested it. So I checked my text message and said, due to inclement weather or whatever, unpredictable wind, we're going to have to cancel our hot air balloon experience. And I was like, oh yes, I did it. I've done it. I knew Tarryn was going to be super sad, but I remember I told her, I said, hey, it's canceled just so you know. And she's like, oh, I'm so sad. And I was like, yes, me too. And I was just kidding. And she knew that, but it ended up getting canceled. So we didn't end up doing it. But I think that, especially me, because I've talked about this many times, I think being courageous usually is you leaning into the fear, leaning into the discomfort. But I think having courage oftentimes can be you saying, you know what, I can't humanly do this. This is a hard no. It's too far outside of my comfort zone. So Alan asked me my intention before this episode. Number one, I wanted to be vulnerable and transparent because I always talk about leaning into and showing up anyway, but I also want to be real and say, look, that is something I could not fully lean into. I didn't have to, luckily, because of nature, but sometimes being courageous and having courage is saying no in a moment that you don't know if you can make it through.
We talk often about the sweet spot, the messy middle, the drive to 5 and everything. And fear chasing is critical. So important. There is no version of you achieving your dreams without courage. But I also think that if you're not careful, you can push yourself so far outside your comfort zone for so long that it actually is detrimental to your mental health. And the analogy here that we always use is, if you're brand new in the gym, it might make sense to bench press the bar without any weight on it. And that might be outside your comfort zone. And if you put 200 pounds on the bar, you might get injured because you have to incrementally increase. So maybe 2,000 feet in a hot air balloon, Kev, is not the first step to, facing your fears. Yeah. And so Kevin and I have used this analogy many times. It's like we talked recently on an episode about how Evan Carmichael challenged you to take a video while taking off on the plane in the window seat. Yeah. Okay, so maybe that's a level 7 fear chase for Kev. And then maybe next is going to be a hot air balloon. So I told Kev that I've actually done the hot air balloon. And then I realized I didn't, because what you were talking about is a real hot air balloon. What I did was literally at a fair. It was like a fair/carnival thing where they had the hot air balloon on a rope. And you went up, I don't know, it definitely wasn't 2,000 feet, but it was high enough to make my anxiety go. Because I also, am afraid of heights as well. And I was drinking, that was day drinking back then. This was my early 20s. And so even with the day drinking and with my buddies, I was still like scared, for sure. Yeah. And that was probably 500 feet or something like that. But maybe if you are going to do a hot air balloon, maybe it would make sense to do, like if you're going to fear chase for heights, maybe it makes sense to do 500 feet with a rope attached, not 2,000 feet over Colorado without any rope. And this is hopefully a lesson and an analogy for all of us of, if you're afraid of public speaking, it is not in your best interest to give a speech in front of 5,000 people. Right. But it is in your best interest to take a video on your phone and send it to a friend that you trust. And then maybe you take a video on your phone and post it on social media. And then maybe you take a video on your phone and post it on YouTube. And then maybe eventually you give a speech in person and you record it to maybe like 20 people. And then maybe you take a video on your phone of a speech in person with 50 people. So, incremental fear chasing, I think is far more intelligent than any sort of like drastic leap of faith that's going to be detrimental to your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And I think it's a fine line. Go ahead. You know what's interesting? This is a really funny story. It was Tarryn, myself, and we had a photographer and videographer couple with us, Josh and Press. And Josh and Press one of the mornings said, hey, there's this path up the side of a mountain, and at the top of the mountain, there's like really good views. Do you guys want to do it? And we were like, yeah, that's fine. And Josh was like, I'll drive.
Like, I'll drive you guys around all day so you don't have to do it. Like, I'll just drive to the location. So I was like, all right, that's cool. So we pull up to the bottom of this mountain. And when I say mountain, Alan, it is a mountain. Like, thousands of feet. Thousands.
Yeah.
And it's one way up and one way down. Like, if you can't turn around. If you're going to the top, you have to go all the way to the top. And there's no turning around. There's nowhere to turn around. And it's only one car at a time. So if there's a car coming, like, you have to pull all the way off to the side and hope you're not on the outside.
Does he have like a Jeep or something? Is this
we
like
had a Toyota 4Runner. So it's
Okay.
a big enough SUV. It's high. It's got big tires.
Yeah.
We saw a Prius come down. Toyota Prius. Emilia has a Prius, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This thing made it up. We were like, hey, do you think we can make it? And he's like, I just did it in the Prius. And we're like, okay. All right, fine. We're good then.
Yeah, sounds good.
There's no way this gentleman made it in the Prius. He lied to us. Boldface lied because there's no possibility he could have made it to the top of this thing in that car. No.
Really?
Yes, no possibility.
Okay.
Because there's like giant rocks and there's rivers. No way he made it. He lied to us. But we're going up. And as you go up, the path gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And there were times where if you went off the edge, you were dead. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, it was like a 500-foot fall and then another 5. You were dead. You were not going to survive. It's reckless to me that people even do this, and there's no guardrails. It was, to me, like, there is no way this is right. Like, why do people do this? But Josh, the guy who was driving, was freaking out. He was like, I can't do it. Like, I don't know if I can make this turn. And I was like, I can do it if you can't. And he's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm not really worried at all.
No.
I'm not
Why
scared.
are we doing this at all?
I'm not scared at all about this.
Okay.
And he was like, okay. And he got out and I literally drove it. And it's interesting how I think, to your point, courage is like a spectrum. I wasn't scared at all. That's
Why?
totally fine. Because I'm a great driver. I'm not worried about that. I don't worry about that at all.
Okay.
And then we had a
I don't
had a
like cars, man. Cars are not safe.
You've had
Cars
bad
are
experiences.
dangerous.
You've had bad experiences.
I've had bad experiences, yeah. for
Tarryn
sure.
and
Where
I
do you
were-
think your fear of heights comes from?
I think it's lack of control. I honestly, at some point, I do believe I'm going to get my pilot's license. It's not that I'm afraid of heights. It is, but it's that I can't do anything about it. I think that's what it is. Like, I'm not afraid of cars at all. I'm an excellent driver. I'm a great defensive driver. I'm not worried about it. Tara and I were talking, and there was they in Colorado.
So you don't
they
want a
have,
self-driving car then?
No, absolutely not. I'm a better driver than the self-driving car is. I'm convinced.
Statistically speaking,
Yeah, but statistics.
that won't always be the case. But I understand.
will.
If you feel like you're on a high end of driving ability,
I do.
then you probably are. It's possible that you're better
Yeah.
than the statistics.
And when
But
I say
anyways,
better,
continue. Yeah,
I just mean I feel safer.
of course. It's a control. It's a certainty thing.
It is,
You
it
have
is.
certainty that it's on your terms. Okay. The mountain thing scares me more than the hot air balloon. Seriously.
You would have
The driving up.
You probably would have pooped your pants.
No like. Don't like.
Yeah.
Nope.
Because
Why?
the way
Why
you
are
have
we
to
doing
turn, the views are beautiful. The way you have to turn
Nice.
is like you have to do a 3-point turn.
Get a drone. You know what I mean?
They had a drone, but
Watch it from the comfort of my house.
we had to be
Yeah.
up there for the pictures.
I know.
You had to do a 3-point turn when you took the corner. So you had to like turn back up towards the edge, and then and it's on like a steep
No
incline.
guardrails.
No guardrails, not a single one.
No way.
And you will die for sure.
No way.
But there was another time where we took a gondola up to, and I don't like gondolas either. That's even though it's like 50 feet off the ground. I didn't like that. But we go up to this, it's like a ski resort, but it's in the summer. So it's a mountain bike trail. And I told Taryn, I was like, I want to do that so bad. And she's like, what? She's like, that's like my biggest fear. And I said, that does not scare me at all. I grew up on a bike. I'm really good on a bike, right? I used to ride off road and do jumps and do wheelies, and I crashed my bike all the time. It's not that big
The
of a deal.
90s,
So
the BMX era.
yeah,
remember?
the BMX era.
BMX
So it's just,
and rollerblades, yeah.
It's just in skateboards. It's just interesting what courage means to you in different parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all relative to the person. So I want to share a post that I created as well, and this has to do with courage. And while this episode is talking about Kevin and I's experience, I want everyone out there listening or watching this to be thinking about their own courage. What scares you? The gold is often buried where you least want to look. I say this quote all the time. I will continue to say it. I said this: if what you wanted and what you needed were the same thing, you'd already have it. If what you wanted and what you needed were the same thing, you would already have it. So we often joke, behind the scenes in group coaching and stuff like that, and some of the book club and monthly meetups, we joke and say, if you want Kevin as your coach, you probably need me. And if you want me as your coach, you probably need Kevin. Because if what you wanted was what you needed, you'd already have it. So think about your own courage. Think about your own fears. And here's the other thing too. And I actually do believe this to be true. Fear is to protect us from danger. That's the purpose of fear, right? You feel hear a rustle in the bushes, like the fearful person runs away, and survives. The person who has no fear goes over there, checks it out, gets killed by a grizzly bear, potentially, right? So we evolved to have fear. Fear serves a purpose, and pretending it doesn't is silly. But the problem is that we have irrational fears. The hot air balloon, you said it was what, a couple people per year or something?
Yeah, it's not a lot.
It's very, very low.
Very
right?
few people get hurt.
I use the analogy of sharks, and I've said this before on the podcast, but I think it demonstrates the irrationality of fears so much, because I've never once swam in the ocean, never once. And even my stepdad used to have a deep sea fishing boat, and he used to jump right off out in the great beyond. I'm talking like he would jump right off. And I remember as a kid, I was like, I would jump off to pretend I was macho and get right back on the ladder, like very, very quickly. There's a lot of things that can kill you in the ocean. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
agree.
So anyways, and he would just kind of chill out there, I remember. But anyways, I looked it up once. One shark death per year on average, less than one. Essentially, they're rounding up to one. And in the U.S., I looked up the U.S. statistics because obviously I live in the U.S. And 39,000 motor vehicle deaths. And so irrational fear, we all get in our car every single day, throw on our seatbelt, hopefully, and then off to the races, no big deal. Listen to music, windows down, whatever. Every time I'm in the ocean, every single time, scared, every time. I don't think I've ever not been scared swimming in the ocean, at least to some extent, which is why I used to drink so much at the beach. No, I'm just joking. Also because it was fun. But that's the irrationality of fear. So think about Kevin's irrational fear of the hot air balloon, which I think has some validity, but understandable. I don't know how good you are at predicting weather, but 2,000 feet up, no rope. I don't know how I feel about it. But statistically speaking, the hot air balloon is safer than your car. But our fear center, our amygdala, does not know that, the fear center of the brain. I'm reading a lot of neuroscience lately. All right, so I'm going to read this story real quick because this was something that I also felt took a ton of courage, way more courage than I originally thought. If you remember, if you're not a new listener and you listened to the episodes before Kevin went on his trip, I talked about trying to do a marathon. I believed that I could do a marathon with a light shuffle jog, and I could do it without stopping. And here's my story. So this is the post that I posted yesterday because I wanted to try to share this experience with people so that they could probably be more courageous and try to be less perfect. I think that's really the moral of this story. Okay. May 18th, 2022, circa 2022, Kev. Dramatic reading time. We're bringing it back. Kevin and I made a promise to ourselves and to our listeners. We promised that we'd weigh in 10 pounds lighter by August 1st. Again, this was on May 18th. We did this to show the power of public accountability. We did an episode on it, and I looked up the episode. It was launched on May 18th, 2022. This meant he had to weigh in at 170 pounds, and I had to weigh in at 180. If we didn't, both of us would have to miss an episode. After 1,000 plus episodes, we weren't going to let that happen, or so I thought.
Hi there, this is Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and I am the host of the Business of Happiness podcast, which would not be in existence were it not for the one and only incredible Kevin Palmieri. Seriously, I am so indebted to Kevin for the service that he provides. Every week he meets with me. He has been coaching me on how to initiate and launch this podcast. He helped me put it together with his great expertise, and every week his whole team works tirelessly to get these podcasts uploaded to Buzzsprout and to deliver my content to my audience. I am so grateful. I couldn't say enough about him. In fact, we've been working together so well. I've seen so much wonderful input from my listeners and asking me for more, that in just a few weeks we're going to be doubling the number of podcasts we produce per week. So this trajectory is just flying, and I'm really enjoying the whole process. So I couldn't say enough about him. Please, if this is something you're considering, I highly recommend him. And reach out to me anytime if you have any questions about our experience. Good luck. Bye-bye.
He hit his goal weeks before, like a G. I didn't write that. Like a G. I was behind. August 1st was a Monday, and the Thursday before I weighed in that evening at 184.6 pounds. I was in trouble. I felt like such a failure and like I'd let myself, Kevin, and our listeners down. As I sat there feeling defeated, I got an idea. I'd always wanted to try a marathon, so I decided to do one that Sunday. So on Thursday, I decided to do a marathon on Sunday. Ridiculous, I know. Okay, so awesome, but ridiculous. Somewhat reckless, with honesty. Okay, I was genuinely scared and kind of freaking out the night before, similar to what Kevin said about the hot air balloon. I was definitely freaking out the night before. Not kind of. I was definitely freaking out. The first half went awesome, came in a little over 2 hours, but the second half was one of the most grueling experiences of my life. Now, real quick, just to talk about courage here. I think part of me was freaking out when I said it publicly on the show that I was going to do a marathon. I think part of me was freaking out the night before because my groin was hurting me. So I have this injury that keeps having problems, and I have to look up some different physical therapy stuff because everything I've done up to this point has not worked. And if you've ever had an injury that just kept being there, most people have experienced this. It sucks so much, and it hurts your confidence a lot because every time you take steps forward, all of a sudden you re-hurt it, and it brings you back. It really can affect your confidence. Quick side note, Tucker has his paw hurt, and he literally lost all his confidence to be able to jump up on the couch or the bed. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to help him do that. So when you get injured, a lot of times it hurts your confidence a lot. So anyways, I was genuinely scared and kind of freaking out the night before. The first half went awesome, came in a little over 2 hours. I remember Emilia has a video of this. I'm like, babe, come do the second half with me. I'm going to try to beat 5 hours. I was literally that confident. Halfway through the marathon, I was crushing it. There's a video of me being playful and almost arrogant in a way of being funny because she was recording and I was doing funny stuff. So in hindsight, I should have just stuck with the shuffle jog. As soon as she got there, I'm starting to take my shirt off. I'm in the sun. I'm starting to pick up the pace. I was doing 3 minutes per lap, rocking and rolling. Babe, I'm going to come in under 5. No. Worst idea ever. Okay. So it took me 7 hours to complete. So remember, 2 hours and 10 minutes or so, and then 7 hours. So 2 hours, a little over 2 hours for the first half, and then 7 hours for the whole thing. So you can do the math on that, how brutal it was. It took me 7 hours to complete and was to date the most painful thing I've ever done by choice. To my delight, though, I did weigh in at 179. And honestly, I was yelling. I was so excited. I thought for sure, dude, we ordered Harry's. We ordered pizza, baklava, subs. I mean, we ordered all the food, right? And I was like, if I don't weigh in under 180, I'm going to have to literally continue dehydrating until tomorrow. I will not miss this goal. So I was so pumped when I weighed in at 179. I couldn't believe it. I literally yelled, oh my God, I did it. Emilia was a little taken back by how much I celebrated because she's like, well, obviously you weighed in. Look at what you just did. But honestly, I wasn't sure because I hydrated a ton the second half. I mean, because I was trying to make up for dehydrating the first half. That was ignorant. Trying to do a marathon dehydrated was not smart. Okay. She took this picture just after the 26th mile and made a first place medal in a race of 1, LOL. So she made me this cute little medal. It was a great experience. I'll never forget it. And I wanted to share what I learned. So here's what I learned. First, every one of us is far more capable than we realize if we're willing to try things that scare us. Second, many say what I did was reckless, and in many ways it was, but the only way we grow is when we are willing to risk embarrassment and failure. Writing a book, starting a business, filming a movie, saying I do, starting a podcast, doing a marathon, or anything in between all require massive vulnerability and courage. The willingness to be embarrassed, to put yourself out there again and again, knowing there's a good chance you'll fail, that is required. So for anyone out there who has a dream they're scared to try, don't let anyone fool you, including me. We are all scared to be seen as failures. We are all scared to be seen as flawed, to be seen as imperfect, or to be seen as hypocrites, especially when we say we're going to do something publicly and then we come up short. That was the hardest part, is that I said I could do this publicly and I was coming up short. I remember I was limping on those last laps, and it was literally like, I can't believe I couldn't do this without stopping, because I thought I could jog the whole thing. I really did. Don't spend your whole life trying to be or look perfect. There's no such thing. Perfect is ridiculous, impossible, and boring. Better is where it's at. Becoming a little better each day through trying and failing forward is where all of the gold is buried. This picture is of a man who's hurting so bad physically, but who's also deeply fulfilled, having achieved a dream, who knows he failed to achieve the time he wanted, the 5-hour goal, but who also knows he would have crawled across that finish line before he would have quit. And lastly, Emilia was beside me the entire second half. She brought me water, sprayed me when I was overheating, literally running with me, spraying my face, and took such good care of me. Her being there made me stronger, and I hope everyone reading this has someone in their corner who believes in them, especially when they're struggling to believe in themselves. And the picture has the weigh-in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's a picture of me with my little first place thing that she made for me. And I was in so much pain. I took my shoes off, and I was in so much physical pain. I remember my legs hurt so bad, but I'm smiling, and I can see in my eyes that I'm actually fulfilled. And I think that's kind of a good analogy for dream chasing, is that it is painful, and it does hurt, and it is embarrassing when you fail. But there's something inside of you that really does feel fulfilled, even when you fail. That's the interesting thing. And if we could just realize that, even though I failed, quote unquote, I still am glad I did it. And so that's the best lesson in the world, I think. Even though it was so painful, and there was so many times where it was like, what if I just stopped? What if I just stopped? I don't have to do this, right? No one really cares that much whether or not I do this. But it's like I do. I care if I'm going to stop. I can't quit. I won't quit. And Emilia was right there. She did the second half marathon with me. She actually ended up hurting her ankle a little bit because injuries tend to flare up when you do reckless things. But she was right there with me, and I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not I would have quit if she wasn't there or not. I want to believe that I wouldn't have, but I can tell you for sure, every moment when I wanted to quit, I was dehydrated, and my lips were like, my fingers were starting to like get swollen, because when you're dehydrated, they get swollen, and but I wouldn't. And she, not once did she say, you don't have to do this. Mm-hmm. She like was right there with me because she knew how important it was to me. And so having someone in your corner that cares about your goals as much as you care about your goals, I think is really, really critical. And then the last piece I'll say, and this is to this episode's point, like saying you're going to do something publicly takes a lot of courage. Whether it was the 10 pounds in 10 weeks or the weigh-in or the marathon, it takes so much courage because there's a chance you're going to mess it up. There's like a good chance you're going to fail when you try hard stuff. As a matter of fact, you're going to fail when you try hard stuff. There's no athlete out there who hasn't had massive failure, on their path to their own greatness. So, yeah, that's it.
Courage is personal. That's what I would say. That's the, the through line of this episode. Courage is personal. I'm not running a marathon though anytime soon. I put that on your post. # no marathons for Kev anytime soon.
I don't recommend it.
Or ever, probably.
If you are going to do it, just train for it.
Yeah, it's gonna be
But I told Emilia this is the last thing I say. I told Emilia this the other day because one of the real deeper reasons I did this. When you do really, really hard stuff, because if I had trained for a marathon for a year and then done one in a year, and I try to say this without ego, I don't feel like it would have been that difficult. Like I really do. I'm an ectomorph. I did cross country and track. Like what made it difficult was doing it on a whim without training. If I had trained for it consistently, I do think it would have been like not easy. It's still a marathon. Of course, it would have been challenging. But what I would say is this: the reason I did this isn't just the weigh-in. I think that there's a part of me that wants to see what I'm capable of when I'm in survival mode. I wanted to see what it was like without the backpack of water on my back, and without the goo, and without the Vaseline to to affect chafing. Like I wanted to see what would happen if I like had to hike 26 miles because I was lost in the woods or something. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy but I'm telling you, you face yourself. I was in so much pain. And again, I don't want to make it sound like what I did was so much more than what these other athletes do, because what they do is unbelievable. But the pain that it takes to do something on a whim like that, it makes you meet who you really are. It gets rid of the delusion of self. It's like, am I really as strong as I thought I was? You have to earn it. It's like you have to earn every step. I'm telling you, I had to earn every step. At one point, Emilia was trying to talk to me, and I said, babe, I'm just trying to survive. I can't talk right now. I can't talk to you about life or, there was these girls playing soccer on the track, and I was just like, please shut up. Oh my God, like, please, I can't. I'm walking. I'm just trying to walk. I'm just trying to survive out here, man. It's like a desert, right? And it was like 90-degree day and in high noon, which again was reckless. But I think that doing hard things helps you face who you really are. And I think that's the inner journey we're all on. So it takes courage. It takes so much courage.
Fire episode. See?
It's a good
Didn't
one.
know where we were going to go. I told Alan I had a story about courage, and I said, let's see what happens. And he said, let me read my story about the marathon, and here we are.
Here we are.
I'd say it was pretty good.
Last thing, Kev.
Oh, Lord.
Do you consider yourself did you used to consider yourself a courageous man?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. One of the things that really started the personal development, self-improvement journey for me was fear chasing. I remember.
I mean, before that.
I don't know, because I've been training to fight people since high school. So I think my version of courage, that's one of people's biggest fears, is like getting into a fight.
Is it yours though?
No.
I think that's one of the interesting things. I think courage is based on fear. If you're not afraid, like I'm not afraid really to jump on this microphone, so it doesn't take that much courage.
But were you at first?
Yes,
I think.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
So
the marathon though, that was when I was really facing self.
Yeah.
The night before, I was like, that was like the wrestling with your own self-doubt. And I realized too, it's like, you know what? Maybe I'm not outside my comfort zone as much as I should be.
It's probably
because
true.
most of the things that we do, I feel pretty comfortable with at this point.
That's probably true.
So I think courage is not the absence of fear. It's when you are afraid and you still follow through. Like you were afraid to let Tarryn down and you still like did, right? And so for lack of better phrasing,
Yeah. No, it's
but
true.
like I think that's what courage really is. It's not, because fighting someone might be someone else's fear, but if it's not yours, you're not facing that inner self. That's all I'm saying. So anyways.
No, I would say probably not. Probably not when I was younger. Before this.
Right.
I don't think I had a reason to be.
Yeah.
I don't really
Well,
think I
that's
had
a
a
whole
reason.
other episode.
I know.
Because that's what the hyperconscious podcast was for you.
Yeah.
It's been fear chasing from the get, man.
Yeah. If you're
Pretty
not
cool.
doing new or doing harder, you're probably not outside your comfort zone enough.
100%.
New or harder. I think those are kind of two boxes to check. I feel like
Which
I
are kind of the same thing.
I feel like I want to stay on this microphone for 12 hours.
Yeah, same.
You want to make this episode 12 hours?
Yeah. Well, that's how long it'll take me to do my next marathon.
Well, it should only take you 6, right? You
Yeah, exactly.
fail forward. You fail
Exactly.
forward.
No,
All right,
I don't
we're gonna-
know. I'm going to stick to bodybuilding, Kev.
Yeah.
Yeah, bodybuilding.
that's the
Bodybuilding
plan.
is for me. No more hot air balloons or marathons. We're going to
Same,
bodybuild.
Yeah, no more hot air balloons for me. I'm happy with downhill mountain biking and riding quads and fast cars and drifting and all that, fighting. I'm good with all that. Heights, not for me. Next level nation. Obviously, if you are listening to us, self-improvement and personal growth, personal development are for you. Maybe you listen to this podcast and you say, I love the podcast, but I'd like a little bit more value, a little bit more specificity to my goals. We have a brand new course live on nextleveluniverse.com. So in January, February, March, we did a live event and we only sold 100 tickets. And we have a lot of people that don't live in this country, or maybe they couldn't afford to fly out, or maybe it wasn't the right time. So we repurposed our live event, and we made it an online training course. So everybody's speeches are on there. My speech, Alan's speech, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and Tori Aletto. We have their PowerPoint presentations, everything that you need, and it's only $47 on the website. If you buy it and you don't like it and you don't feel like you got value, just send me a message. I am happy to give you your money back, because at the end of the day, we want to add as much value as possible. And if it doesn't add value, we're not doing our job.
So I'm on the website right now. There's a courses tab that has both of our courses. So if you are strapped for cash currently, but you still want the value, we have 2 courses. One of them is free. It's called the Next Level 5 to Thrive. It's about clarity, commitment, community, confidence, and consistency. And then the Next Level Live 2022 is under that same tab. Also, Group 8 for group coaching is, I'm looking it up right now on the website, so 50 days and 4 hours away. It closes in 50 days. So we already have 2 of the spots locked. If you want to be a part of Group 8, the first group, we've graduated 6 groups. We're currently in our 7th. The first group was Ambitious Army, then Gratitude with Attitude, then Tribe of Abundance, then Legacy by Design. Then there was Aspiration Nation, G6, and then there's one more, Pursuit of Excellence. If you want to be a part of a group of like-minded individuals that are dream chasing and courageous and vulnerable, private WhatsApp group, assistant coach, Kevin, myself, bi-weekly program, achieve more in 90 days than you ever have before. You want to talk about public accountability? That's what that is. You know, it's a safe place to be willing to try and fail forward. And that's really what we've designed. So Group 8, 50 days from now, it is launching. We will not be taking a single person above 10 people. So get in now.
And we also have payment plans as well. So you can pay all at once. You can pay over the course of 3 months. And I think you can also pay over the course of 6 months. Again, our goal is to make things as affordable as humanly possible, where you can get to the next level no matter where your wallet currently is. Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1067. It is last week's live Q&A. I don't know what the title is because I have not decided yet, but it is based on why many relationships fail. So it is something along the lines of relationships, which we love talking about. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in and sticking with us for a longer episode. As always, we love you, and you're the best in the world. We have the best community in the world. We have the best family in the world. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.